Welcome all to the session, of Optimize 24. If this is your first session of the day, my name is Chloe Norwood. I'm the field marketing specialist here at Visible Thread. We will be taking questions throughout this session, so make sure to submit any questions you may have into the Q&A box. All recordings and slides will be sent out after the event concludes. I'd like to give a warm welcome to Alexa Tsui, Chief Operating Officer at G2X Change, where she will be discussing best ways to master business development and capture. And now I will hand it over to Alexa.
Thank you so much, Chloe. I appreciate you. And this is my second time doing one of these. So thank you to the audience. And here we go. There's the heart. We've got quite a few people on the call. I did a little perusal of the list of folks that are on. And hello to my good friends, including Fergal. So it's nice to see you all. And I hope today you learned something. Like Chloe had mentioned, I will be taking questions as I go along. So please feel free to type them in there. And I always feel like these are best if people put in their LinkedIn profile or talk about what company they're with inside of the chat, not in the question one, but in the attendee chat. It's at the very bottom. Put in there your LinkedIn and maybe like something about your company. So that way people can use this as an opportunity to do some networking as well. So that's always like best practices. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. As Chloe had mentioned, I'm the Chief Operating Officer of G2X. I have about 20-year background in federal contracting, different parts and pieces. So I ran BD and capture for years and years. I've done delivery, I've done recruiting, let me just tell you the pieces I haven't done. I haven't done pricing. And I also haven't done like the HR side of the house outside of hiring and recruiting and all of that. So, but other than that, I've pretty much done almost everything in the process, as well as most of it on the market intelligence side as well, from writing reports to doing pipelines to doing all the parts and pieces. I've built up teams, I've scaled back teams, I've done most of the things. So from today, we're going to talk a little bit about how do you put together a growth team, or how do you embed your doer-seller model into your teams? And what is the difference between those two? How do you hire a BD capture person? If you're looking for a BD capture role, how do you know if something's a red flag? Also, so we're going to talk about all of that. Then we're going to talk about tools and BD and capture and PWIN. We got lots to cover. Wow. Even talking about it, I'm like, holy moly, we better get started. Okay. So before we jump into the tools and the process and the pieces, I just wanted to kind of give an overview of the government procurement timeline and why it matters. So everything that the contractors do mirrors what the government's doing. Like, we're not usually doing things outside of what they're doing. So that it's really nice when you have a bunch of friends like I have on the government side, and they're like, oh my God, Alexa, I'm in this acquisition planning phase over here, and I just don't know what I should be doing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so easy. We need to meet and greet, or, get your delivery teams in there meeting some people. So, they're like, what should I do? Well, you should engage. That's what you should be doing, right? And then, as the government goes into their RFI sources, SOTs, their drafts, their finals, their Q&As, and all the stuff, we're doing something similar on our side, right? We're responding to the RFIs. We're doing our blue teams, our darker blues, our reds to golds, our panic moments, our BAFO kickoffs or the protests, which I built into the system here because that's like just a fact of things these days. And I think the government themselves is even like building in protest periods as well. So, remember when I was first in this industry, and I was just talking to Chloe about it before we started here, when you first start and you're like, wow, there's so much to learn. But I think if you kind of like circle down to like, there's a timeline and it never changes. Like, this is the way the government does it, and this is how industry does it. And you just align these things to move forward, deal after deal, opportunity after opportunity. Now, I'm sure everybody on this call has heard, well, when it hits SAM, it's too late. Or, Fed Biz Ops, which is my favorite system ever, till they decommissioned it, now it's SAM. That's not actually true, especially in a sources sought pre-solicitation phase. Now, is it ideal to start your customer engagement before that? So we're talking like over here, and this is why it says delivery. Yes, it absolutely is. You should be getting in front of your people as soon as possible and talking to them and understanding what they need so you can bring it to them and help shape the document. That's like the golden grail, right? Yeah, we all know that. Okay, and also my other favorite one is like, yeah, it's wired. The incumbents and the incumbent can bid. We're not going to bid. These are like you talking yourself out of things because of feelings. Like, honestly, you should talk yourself out of deals that you can't win, but not necessarily because it it's already out on SIM, or because there's an incumbent. Look, a lot of times the government themselves is behind the 8 ball, and they have to do things quickly. So they put something out and they're like, okay, 2-week turnaround. Industry looks at it and they're like, 2-week turnaround, so probably wired. The government's like, it's not wired, dude. I just don't have time. So, that's a little bit of a tricky quandary there between what the government's trying to do and then how us on the industry side read the tea leaves and make a bunch of assumptions. And sometimes the assumptions are right, but very often the assumptions are wrong. So, you kind of have to ask yourself. But I guess what I'm trying to say is behind all of it, you really need a good process. So what is that process? But before you have process, you have people. It always goes people, process, technology. And if you think it goes in some other way, you got bad news for you, my friends, because it's always people first. So let's talk about the people. Okay, so I think this is a little Alexa talking here, that if you take the two different models of a doer seller and a outside growth team, if you take those two concepts and you break them apart, and I'll talk about the doer seller model first, that's where you take your delivery PMs, like, okay, this person's a PM over here, this person's a PM, they're running the delivery of the business. And you say, okay, delivery person, you're closest to the customer. So we're going to say that you have a very, very lovely commission based, and we want you to help grow the business, which means you're in there talking to things, you're finding the RFIs, you're finding the RFPs, you're running those things at the same time as your day job of delivery. You can kind of see where I'm going with this, right? I don't think that's the best way of doing it, because that person is ultimately responsible and accountable for doing their PM job first. And then the growth piece is secondary to that. So, and then it does also help that I am outside growth person in general. Like, that's my background. I'm a growth executive. So I'm always going to pitch. I'm like the dealer, always in on the growth side. So let me tell you what that usually looks like, outside growth team. So you have a business development person, you have a growth leader, and you have a capture management person. These roles are very different. So I'm going to talk to you about what they are. And yeah, I've got some numbers up here. These are kind of like basic numbers, and these are salaries. Yeah, I know you could probably hire people in the Philippines maybe to do some of this work in the business development or some other country and pay them next to nothing. That's always an option. But look, if you're trying to stand up a growth team, you're going to want that team to be cohesive and meet together in person and like each other and all those fun, warm and fuzzy things. So business development, what do? You are accountable for customer identification, frontline marketing, pipeline building, RFI responses, and pitching the company on the deals. That means that when you have a step review or a gate review at the very beginning of it, you're responsible as a BD person to get all the information that's needed and pitch it to the executives. And the executives say thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs sideways. Thumbs up, go ahead. And then at that point, you get the capture folks involved and figure out how do you get to the win. Really, capture is about how do you get to the win. And in the meantime, you have a growth leader that's overseeing everything, that's really responsible for the BD and the capture outcomes. And they own the key relationships. They're out there making friends with the bigger companies or the smaller companies or the niche companies or the technology vendors or whatever it is, right? And they are the last say in which ops to chase, which companies to team with, and figure out, like, give the green light on all the submissions and the white glove reviews and all of those parts and pieces. They are the leader of the team. Okay, capture management. I think I mentioned it before. How do you get to the win? And you're going to notice that these two numbers look very similar, and this one is more because they're the boss. Hypothetical, these are just hypothetical numbers. When I talk about capture management, you are accountable for taking the opportunity, which it says agreed upon opportunity, from the blue team, which is like, yeah, we're going to chase this down. Here it is, right? Okay, teaming, pricing, leading the solutioning, leading the color team reviews, and the BD person doesn't just disappear into the ether. They come back. They're kind of like over here, but they're not leading all these things. Now you can kind of see the point after I talked about all of this, why there's different people doing different things. In my experience, the people that are very good at capture management are very strategic thinkers. They're people that love to be behind the scenes. I'm thinking of one person in general right now. He's phenomenal. He knocked my socks off. I think also him and I, when we first met, we struggled a lot because I'm very much this business development person. I'm like, show up to all the events. I have all these government friends. We party on the weekends. We know each other really well, and but you want me to get out like 72 teaming agreements, I'm going to like go cry. right? So this is really like the difference in personality. Somebody that's really good at one probably will not be really good at the other, and that's on purpose. So can these two roles be the same person? They can. In fact, all three of these can be the same person. I find the smaller the company, the more that these roles are the same person. The bigger the company, the more they are different people. That's just from experience. Okay, I don't see any questions so far. Does anybody have any questions? It looks like I love this energy. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yay, Fergal, looking for my next opportunity. Awesome. Oh, Andrea, that's right. Hey, Andrea. Hey, girl, I know you too. Yeah, funny. It's funny that I know who she is too. Okay, moving on. Andrea, you might want to pay special attention to this slide right here because this slide is really key for anybody that's looking for your next BD or capture role. I find that if you get flagged on any of these things, don't just walk away, run away, because you're going to struggle and you're going to say, oh my gosh, I remember the slide Alexa showed and she was right. I get told that a lot, like, oh my God, I should have listened to you. You were right the whole time. Okay, thank you. So the first one is, what is the timeline that you expect to see results? My favorite thing is when a company says, oh, I need you to put, numbers on the board immediately. Okay, well, this is government contracting. And if you go back to my first slide, right, it takes time. And I don't know if you read what I try not to read my slides verbatim, but at the very bottom of my slide, it said it's 18 months. It's an 18-month cycle. So if the answer that you're looking for is 18 months is acceptable. But if somebody says that they want you to bring the rain in 3 to 6, or, oh, we only do sole sources and we need you to close 5 of those in the next 2 weeks, I would definitely tell people that they are dreaming. Talk to me about bonuses and how are they tied to results. That's a great question for an interview. And people are going to tell you a lot of things. And a lot of companies will tell you, like, they'll go around in circles and talk about a rising tide lifts all boats, and they'll tell you all sort of stuff. The answer you're looking for is profit sharing. You want to be in a profit sharing. Listen, you can talk about equity and dream about it all day long. I don't even, like, as a growth executive, I do not think that equity is always the right answer. It can be if you need it to be, and there are situations to where that might be an option you would consider. But I would suggest that profit sharing is even better than equity, and I'll tell you why. Profit sharing is like, hey, the company has raised their valuation like this much, and it was because of you, and so therefore you're going to get paid out quarterly on how well the company's doing based on TCV, total contract value. So that's what you're looking for, right? You don't want to be tied in equity-wise to a company, brand new company that you don't know. 6 months down the road, you're like, oh, wow, I don't know that this was even a good idea for me. And then you'd be like, okay, yeah, I don't really want to do this anymore. And then you're stuck equity-wise. So ask me how many people have been in that situation, right? All right. The next question. Does the company have a doer seller model, or do they have an independent growth theme? My answer to this is like, look, it could be either one of those. Both of those can be successful. I prefer an outside growth theme, but both can be successful. But the thing is, you're looking for a company that has a strategy. Because if the company wants to do both of those things, which I've seen a lot of companies conflate the two and have a big fat question mark about which one of those they're actually doing, that's when trouble starts happening, because nobody, like, who's accountable, no pants dance strategy is what's happening. So look, if a company's like, we don't really have a strategy, we're going to chase everything down as it pops up on SAM, and we're going to bid lowest price. Hey man, that sounds like a strategy to me. And no, that's a no strategy. And I'm cool with that as long as you know that's what we're doing and everybody's on board with that, right? But if you think you're doing one, but you're really doing the other, and you're actually kind of doing both, and nobody really knows who's on first, that's when struggles really kind of arise. All right, since we're kind of using the chat down here, hey, I'm just going to come down and make sure that I'm not missing anything. Okay, this next one's important, and I'm going to go a little bit into the hows, the who's, and the whys. Who votes in the step gate reviews, and how is the work distributed? Do you have specific BD folks and dedicated capture support? A lot of times, one of the struggle points I've seen is companies balance the risk of operations with the excitement of growth. And it depends on where the company is in their life cycle. So, for example, I noticed in the attendee list, we have some Alaska Native companies. So the approach that an Alaska Native company would take to win new work might be different than a company that is in like, that's a brand new hub zone, for example, or somebody that just got their SDVOSB and wants to partner with T4 and G2 primes, or like whatever it is, right? Every company is in a little bit different place in how they're going to approach the market. So in my experience, I think that if you are going to gate review, I don't think operations should have a vote, because operations is always going to be looking at it from a risk perspective. And if you have a growth oriented company, having the risk person in charge of a vote is going to always slow down and drag down the growth velocity. And that's just my own opinion. I do feel like they should have a say, but I don't think they should be a voting member. That's just my own. So my final thoughts on this slide is not having a strategy is okay if you know that you don't have one. And also, this second part is key. It's the company's top priority to develop a strategy, to figure out what that is, right? Ask about the tools. There are a bunch of tools out there, and some are better than others. Ever since AI kind of popped on the scene, there's never been a time where there are more tools out there. Like every day I see like, oh, have you ever heard of Gov fill in the blank random thing? There's this new tool out there that does fill in the blank random thing. Yeah, I've heard of all of these tools. Are they good? Yeah, it just depends. But the answer is, remember, as you're going to see this as a theme for me today, people, process, technology, it's always going to come down to those three things. And the first one is always people. So going down to the third thing is, whenever you put these proposals together, you have to remember it's always a team effort. Your proposal ops team, your proposal managers and your graphics people and all those people and your recruiters are very important to your success. And if it's only the BD capture people or the growth people or your ops people, whatever, whoever's leading growth are the only people that are bonused on wins, you're overlooking something that could really help your P win out by making sure your morale is raised by saying thank you. And like, I remember I would buy bottles of alcohol or other gifts, for people if they really helped me out, because I knew that I couldn't do it without them. And, I've heard recruiters come up to me afterwards and say, oh my gosh, thank you for not forgetting about us, man. Without you, we don't have a job. Like recruiters, this is most of the time a services business here. Who are we kidding ourselves, right? Okay. The next one is really important, is make sure a company has a capability to sell and they know what the heck that is. So a lot of companies are out there doing government contracting that really are like, yeah, well, you know what, we do IT services. If I had $1 for every time I heard that, okay, cool. Well, IT services is pretty much like 16 different NAICS codes and like thousands of different things. So like pick one, right? Riches are in the niches, and that's never not going to be true. So you're going to want to make sure that that your company knows what it is and they know how to sell it. Or I mean, you don't have to know how to sell it, but you have a capability to sell. So I was at a company where they were like, okay, so we're going to break everything down into these 4 markets, 3 verticals. I'm like, yeah, it's a little complicated, but like, hey, it worked, right? Okay, and the last one is, if it's a small business, ensure the company has vehicle reach and a clear understanding of teaming. I'm going to tell you guys a fun fact I recently found out, and I was like, this can't be true. And the more I looked into it, the more true it was. And I was like, people need to know this. Subcontract data. Sorry, that was like the wrong way of putting it. Subcontract revenue on your books is more valuable to you when you're trying to sell your business than prime contract revenue. What? Isn't it like mind blowing? Because you get in this place as a business where you're like, all I want to do is prime contract. Subcontracting is such a pain, and I'm not in control, and I want to prime contract everything. But then somebody will tell you, usually too late in the process, subcontract data is more valuable, subcontract revenue is more valuable to you when you go to sell. And you're going to be like, I wish somebody had told me that. This is Alexa telling you that is true. Okay, next slide. Anybody have any questions on the slide? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay. All right. Okay. I'm not getting any questions, so we're moving on. Moving on, y'all. All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about G2X. I am the Chief Operating Officer of G2X after all, right? And really, when I was looking at G2X versus GovWin or BGov or GovDash or GovBrew or whatever the heck Gov fill in the blank thing, I really realized that you want to be out in front of these things early, which we talked about, and you really want to develop customer industry intimacy, and build that trust through repeated actions of excellence. Be popular in the government, be popular in the industry, and kind of do your pipelines and RFIs and gate ones. And like, how do you find out about all of these things all at the same time? You need a tool. You have to have something. So G2X has the front side of those tools. We have an events database. Where should you be? We have the awards. Who's winning what? We have the industry days. We have the opportunities and things. So you can keep track of this entire industry. And really, that's a business development function. And we are very, very good at that part of it. So I was going to say that if you don't have that tool, if you don't have a tool out there that helps you keep track of everything in one place, you should definitely get one. All right, so now that we talked about business development, I'm going to bring it back and remind you before we start talking about PWIN, what capture is. So, because capture is very strategic, and capture comes into like, can we win? What's the path? Should we do this? What are the win themes? Starts the blue team meetings. Should we team? If so, with whom or how much? And what's the pricing strategy and the blue team strategy and the price to play and the IDGE? Somebody on this call probably, what is an IDGE? That is the independent government estimate. That's what that stands for. And also I was going to tell you that it's not a very important number. Some people will be like, I have to know that number because that's going to be the line in the sand that we kind of circle down our pricing on. But at the end of the day, it should be just one more data point. Like, yeah, okay. But if it's a recompete, you pull the other pieces of like, what was the other contract? Where was it? That's another data point. And then you could do your own independent estimate on like, where do you need to be and back into a price to win, right? That's what the price to win piece is getting all those data points together and figuring it out. But before I move on from this slide, I was going to talk a little bit more about the blue teams and if you're just now listening to this, you're probably like, what in the heck is this confetti team thing we're talking about, right? Lots of different colors. So I think the earlier you can get in the process and build some excellence in rigor with your people and processes, the better your proposals are going to be because you're going to be consistent with how you do things. So blue team to me means BD has identified it. The BD team has made sure the customer knows who you are, what you bring to the table, and probably even how you would do it. And that how is really important to be kind of carried on throughout the process. So the BD person has come back into the company and put together a presentation. You can call it whatever you want. Some people call it a gate review. Some people call it a capture gate. Some people call it a planning to bid. Who knows? People call it all kinds of things. Whatever that process is, when the BD person pitches it to the company, you have your executives, you have your decision makers. They're looking at this opportunity, including some capture people. That presentation that day, it becomes a blue team opportunity. It moves into capture if the company says, yes, we're going to do this. And when you talk about next steps, there should be a proposal manager assigned, a capture person, and then those two people get together and start planning the answer to all of these questions. And it goes from blue to pink to red to white to gold. And yeah, that's a Shipley thing. And, Shipley's a very old company and a little stodgy in their processes. And, it's like very large, millions of steps and things. But I think that's been pretty much distilled into the way that most companies talk about it in the small businesses, especially when you're like, okay, how do we condense these 104 steps into like 5? So yeah, it's blue team, pink team, red team. And really, if you think about it, blue team, you're still like a 60-40. Yes, we want to do this. We still have questions. Pink team, people have actually started putting pen to paper or pen to the AI or however people are doing it these days, right? Oh my gosh, do I really only have 5 more minutes? Oh my goodness, I just saw the time. I got to speed this up. So at that point in time, the last chance that you have to back out of something is red team. If you've gone all the way through a red team and you're getting to gold, once you're in a gold, you no longer can no bid that. I mean, you can, but your partners might skin you alive. So you just got to take your chances when you can. And if you notice something that means that you can't win, you want to get out of it as soon as possible. All right, I'm going to move on to the next slide. People talk about PWin a lot, and it is pure kabuki. I'm going to be the person to tell you that PWin, I did see this guy's really fancy car that said PWin 100, and that makes sense to me because he obviously already won. And then he said, okay, well, I was 100% sure I was going to win. That makes sense. But like everything else, when you're looking at the different parts and pieces, can we do this? Should we do this? How do we do this? What does a win look like? All of these things are based on things that are a little bit outside of your control, right? But how do you get there is really a version of math and assigning different percentages to each one of these different parts and pieces. Having a no strategy, as I mentioned, is a strategy, but that means you're just bidding low price. I don't see any questions popping up. Does anybody have any questions for me? No? Okay, then I'm going to keep going. But when you're in a gate review and somebody says our PWin is 75%, like anything over 50 is really dreaming because, like I said, so much of it is outside of your control. So what you're looking for is like 10, 15, 20%. And 20% if you are the incumbent or you have the incumbent on your team and the customer loves them. Like that's a pretty high PWin for us, honestly, in this industry. Okay, we're moving on. Okay, so I talked a little bit about tools. This is actually a really fun video that kept moving around in a circle. And I was talking about this because really you should have your people in their positions and the bus going in the right direction before you get a tool. And then you should have it figured out how you're going to use the tool. I mean, so I talked about G2X. G2X is a very lightweight, very beautiful UI platform that moves very quickly. GovWin is a tool that's a little bit bulkier, but when you log in there, there's so much data that you can kind of go through. I consider GovWin to be a little bit more of a capture tool, to be honest with you. GovTribe is a little bit more, it's even more lightweight, honestly, and it's pretty, there's pros and cons to every single one of these. And so really, before you get into these tools, you need to ask yourself some of these questions here. Like, is it accurate? I can tell you a tool that's out there, but I would never speak bad about a tool. Oh, thank you, Monica. I appreciate you. I would never speak badly about a tool, but there's a tool out there where I wrote a whole report about Vets2 getting their $1 billion funding boost. And I was like, ooh, I wrote all this data. And then somebody called me and was like, oh my gosh, check your data if you're using this particular tool. And I went back and checked it and I was like, oh my God, it was all wrong. So if you're having to double check your data because you're worried it's not accurate, it's probably not the best tool. Second one, is it like timely? And with the way that things work now is like you should actually be getting an email every single day telling you who's winning, what, when, and where. What are your customers buying? How are they buying it? What vehicles are they using? What's up and coming? What big industry moves are out there? What big events should you be preparing for? And all of those parts should be very simple. And G2X has a newsletter that we've had for 10 years almost. Actually, we have had for 10 years. And we track all of those parts and pieces and send it to you every single day. And we have people that just kind of like put together their day based on the information that's in there. It's free, so feel free to sign up for that. Is it actionable? Can I use this data? So using the data is very important. I know, Chloe, you wanted to close this out, so I am going to give you like 30 seconds at the end. Don't worry, I got you, girl. And then is it relevant? So that's the other thing is like, can you use the data and like, what are you going to do with it? At the end of the day, this is an industry where we all are in here trying to do our best and be better government contractors. Just want to say thank you for listening. And if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to walk you through anything deeper that I might have talked about today. And I guess I'll kick it over to Chloe.
Yes, well, thank you, Alexa, for joining us and giving us a piece of your expertise today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. There is a survey box on the right side of your screen. If you could all please fill that out and leave Alexa and I some feedback on this session, we greatly appreciate that. Sorry. The next session will begin at 2:45 p.m. Eastern. This session is with Eric Coffey from GovCon Giants, where he will discuss how social media and and digital strategies can help your GovCon business grow. So stay online with us. Once this session concludes, it should redirect you to the next one, and we'll see you guys over there.
Thank you so much, Chloe, and thank you everybody for listening. Have a great day.
Yes, thanks guys.